What's going on YouTube? Tim from Silverstorm Gaming here. I'm here with my brother Dan, and we are super stoked to show you this project that Dan's been working on for quite a while. And I'll just let him get to the explanation.
I've been working on this for quite some time. I just wanted to find a new, fresh way to play Yu-Gi-Oh! All these Zoom mirrors, they're really fun, but it kind of gets stale after a while. So I wanted to I went to Cube to kind of play a different format, but I found a lot of problems that were that just made the Cube seem very repetitive. So I tried to find an answer for it. So I amassed this huge collection of cards, and we're just gonna get into it. Basically, this is a cube that includes like commons, rares, and ultras, like a normal pack of Magic, Epic Draft. It's basically like opening packs that have like commons, rares, and cards that you're only supposed to see one of. So there's 3s of, 2s ofs, and 1 ofs, and you're able to really draft a deck that wouldn't be possible in a regular cube, and that's basically it. It's an extra deck cube where the extra deck is universal, and it's so much fun. The decks and possibilities are endless with this cube. There's 480 cards, but it's still a work in progress. So let's just get into it. One of the main interactions that I really wanted to show was that like things that just actually can't happen in normal cube draft. These are just like iconic cards and combos that just would never happen in normal cube, and this is like the idea that I came up with, is just like trying to allow these interactions and allow the decks to be more unfair, so to speak. People who draft their decks for synergy will be rewarded, and these are the kind of interactions that will never come up in regular cube. You don't have multiple, so you won't be able to play a Deep Sea Diva and get its ability. This never made in my original cube because there's just no way to fully use it. And this is super fun. I'm gonna try and get into some cores that people were drafting in the first couple of drafts that we did, and I'm just really excited. Like, this is a new, fresh way that you can go back and reminisce on old formats and really just like have a lot of fun with friends. The draft process is super skill intensive. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, it's actually, it feels like drafting sets of Magic. Like, it feels that like it's actually a new, fresh format that you come into every time with endless possibilities, and it feels like a real actual pack that you're drafting, a set. So yeah, let's just get into it. So a lot of the 3-ofs are just there because they are centric to certain decks, and a lot of other cards, like a lot of the 1-ofs are just very powerful cards, like Soul Charge and like really powerful spells and stuff like that. But a lot of the 1-ofs are also just there because they only fit in certain decks, and you don't want to take up too much spots in the cubes. Like, an example here would be like Rescue Cat. It's one of the cards that's like very specific to its own deck, and it would just be taking up a lot of spots in the cube, so we only have one. These are just like some engines that one of my teammates, Michael, drafted, and this is just like one possibility of a single deck out of like many archetypes that are possible. This is Rescue Cat's one of my favorite decks. Like, Flameville Cat is such a sick deck. So many cool interactions. And yeah, like these decks are just, you get rewarded for like drafting synergistically instead of just picking the most powerful cards. Because I felt like in the regular cube, the decks weren't very like synergistic. They just seemed like piles of cards, and I just wanted to make a format where you could reminisce on these old decks and actually assemble combos and strategies to make a consistent deck that does what it wants to do every single time. And it really, this format really portrays like the highest points of Yu-Gi-Oh!, the most fun and the most interactive games, and especially in comparison to what we have now. I'm not knocking what we have now. I think this format is great, but these are just like the days. Like, these are awesome times, and we're just gonna go through a few of these cores that are in here. And like I said, this is 480 cards. Like, the possibilities are actually endless. So these are just some deck cores. Like, one card that I was really eager to get in here was Grass, and when I saw it got hit to 1, I was like, well, I'm definitely picking them up now. It's just a really powerful card that if you assemble all of them, you can build your entire deck around, and that's something you don't get in regular cube draft. Like, if you draft a Painful Choice, it's like, okay, I'm gonna take Monarchs and stuff like that, and Frogs and regular cube. But in this cube, like, you can actually, if you assemble of one card that's very powerful, you can actually build your entire deck around it. And there are all other pieces that you then assemble to build a deck that can be very powerful. And there's just some of examples trying to show you guys like what numbers and certain things like cards like Foolish and Pot, like they're very powerful cards, but they're also just commons, like they're 3 copies of, because you get rewarded for building your deck so that you get to like make these cards powerful, pretty much. Like if there's only one grass, the card is never going to be good enough in a format like this. You're not going to draw consistently enough. So I wanted to give people a chance to say, okay, I'm getting all these graveyard effects and I see this grass pretty early, I want to take it and see where it goes. I want to be able to draft decks that are very specific and get rewarded for taking X amount of graveyard effects or stuff like that. So this is just one other example. Like a lot of the cards overlap with other effects, like with what you want, and yeah, we'll see that. Like another deck that we could even play grass in is just this small zombie engine that I pulled out. All these cards are like most of them are 3-ofs, except for like the Ill Blood, because you don't really not many decks want Ill Blood, so there's not going to be too many people fighting over it. But this is just another engine that is very underdrafted in my opinion in the cube, so you can get rewarded by going into this and you usually get all the pieces. So I just want there to be some sort of like actual thought process behind the draft, whereas in regular cube draft I feel like you're picking the best card in every single pack, and then whatever your deck ends up being is what it ends up being. Another card that I was really like, these cards are so iconic to me. Like these are like the greatest times in Yu-Gi-Oh in my opinion, and like you will never be able to draft these kind of strategies in a regular cube. And I just think this is a sick way to kind of
incorporate it.
And yeah, like incorporate all these old formats that you can actually you can play Teledad versus Plants, like, but it's a draft format. Like so the creative like deck building process is still all involved in this, and the draft is very skill intensive. You don't know what's gonna wheel, you don't know how many powerful cards per pack there are. This cube can be played 4 to 8 players, so the decks change and the power level of decks change based on those numbers, and it's just super interesting. The extra deck is actually shared by all players, is how I designed this, because I didn't want to feel like the extra deck was being like drafted, because then you're just like not getting pieces that you need for like your strategy and whatever. And I just wanted everyone to have like fun and be able to make all the cards. Although there are some broken cards, like there's no Exciton, there's no like Castel. There aren't cards that like are initially just automatically good, like you'll always make them every time, because I don't want it to feel very automatic, like you're just playing with 15 extra deck. I want you to have some option, but I don't also want it to be so extensive that you have an answer for every single thing. And these are just like some of the examples that we have here. The extra deck right now, I believe it's like 35 cards or something, but it's still a work in process. So yeah, another powerful card that you can build around is Skill Drain. My first draft, I ended up taking a Skill Drain based deck. Just a lot of small interactions that really add up and you really synergistic. And yeah, I just think this format's like so fresh, so fun. And the drafting is the best part. Like, I think it's so fun, and it's a lot more skill intensive than I really intended it to be. And it just feels like a real draft. Like, it feels like a real, like, Yu-Gi-Oh! It doesn't feel like it's a joke draft like these other cubes were, for me, at least when I was testing them. We have Chaos Engines. Just talk about like some numbers here real quick. Like, these are obvious, like they're one-ofs because they're extremely powerful. But a card like Chaos Sorcerer is something that you need enough Chaos monsters to draft a Chaos deck. So like I wanted there to be like at least be able to draft it, even if you don't get the very impressive cards. It just means that you won't have a great version of the deck, but it's still a playable deck that you can play well with, and you can even win the draft with. You don't need super powerful cards in your deck because these decks are so synergistic and are so consistent. We have other engines here. Teleport was another one that inspired this idea. I was like, I always draw my Krebons in cube before my teleport. Now that's never a problem. Like, I can play 3 and 3. One card mainly that I really love to draft and is really powerful is Return. You have to draft your deck to make this card work, and that's why it's not just a one of. It's something you have to build around, but it's something that rewards you for building around it, and that's exactly the kind of thing I'm going for here with this cube. It's really I just want people to be immersed in like their deck building and their design and their drafting, and every pick really matters and stuff like that. Like, there's so many playables. Like, that's one thing. It's like I see a lot of the cubes. Like my last cube had so many cards that just weren't very playable, and they were just always not drafted, because there's not enough good cards in Yu-Gi-Oh to have like a 400 something card cube with only singleton copies. Like, a lot of your cards in your deck just are going to be basically make it look like a pile. And then these decks, these cards are all playable from multiple formats and stuff like that. One of my personal favorite engines is the Dark Arm-esque engine. Oh, not to mention, this reminds me that all the effects in Cube are the originals. There's no erratas. I like to play just how the cards were intended to be played, and it just brings back so many memories, like flipping Crush on a Sangan or like a Mali. It just back when I was 13 years old playing Teledad. It was so much fun, and Malicious is one of the cards that really inspired this cube. I think it's so sick that these cards, you just can't even use them. There's so many good times in Yu-Gi-Oh that revolve around this card, and so many memories that these kind of cards have made. So I wanted to, just be able to put them out there. And Malicious is actually one of the special cards in this cube. Cards that involve themselves, such as Malicious, Tengu, cards like that are actually Tour Guide, for instance. Actually, there are more than 3 copies because they're very sought after cards in draft, and this is all through testing and experimenting and stuff like that and doing numbers. There's anywhere from 5 to 6 based on how popular the cards are. Just so that people can get 3. You can't play more than 3. It's still just 3 copies per deck, and you can't even I'm not sure if I'm gonna let people draft more than 3, just because you're basically just hate drafting at that point. But yeah, you can't play more than 3. I just wanted to be able to actually make it draftable, because no one's gonna get 3 Malicious if there's 3 in the entire cube. So that's the cube. I'm so excited about this because it feels like a real draft. And one inspiration for this cube was Epic Card Game. I played in the World Championship last November, and the cube format in that format is so sick. You just get rewarded for drafting synergistically over, instead of just taking the most powerful card in every pack. And there's 3 ofs and 1 ofs, and I decided to do 2 ofs in this cube as well because some cards just didn't fit in those 2 categories. And it just was a real big inspiration. I love that game. You guys should check it out. But this format is insane. I want to do so much content with this because the interactions that happen in this format are just so much fun, and it's a really skill-intensive game. Me and my brother played in the finals of the cube, and he was playing a Monarch deck. I was playing a Skill Drain Dark Arm Zombie deck. 2 decks that just were great in their time, and they had new twists on them because all these cards weren't available in those formats, and it just comes up with interactions that would never come up in any other game of Yu-Gi-Oh! And that's what I'm trying to give. I'm not just trying to have these decks be piles. I'm trying to have draftable archetypes, just like the Magic cube, so to speak. That's just a singleton cube, but there are draftable archetypes and decks that people go into based on their first few picks, based on what their powerful cards are. And that's kind of what I'm trying to get at with this cube. It's a new, fresh idea. I wanted to bring it to you guys as soon as possible. I've been working on it forever because the balancing the numbers was so hard. There's so many cards that you just can't have 3 of because certain things happen. But for an example, Dark Arm is a 3 of because you need to draft dark cards. It's a powerful card, but it's a very draftable card. So a lot of people are going to be able to splash it. On a lot of people, you're not just going to get 3 every time. You're not going to get 2 every time. So that's why it's a 3 of. So it's one of those iconic cards that defines a format, and that's what I kind of want. Cards that are very powerful, that are very easily to splash, or some cards that you have to go really deep to play. So that's the idea I've been working on for a very long time. I can't believe I had all the cards. Like when I had the list, like I looked through all my bulk, all my shoe boxes, and through the help of Tim, like we actually got all these cards together like in one night. So that was pretty sick. And then from there, it's just balancing issues and testing and showing like what can be drafted, what can't be drafted, what's viable, what's not, what are playables, what's not, what are cards that are drafted, what are cards that are not as drafted. Those numbers are going to go on at the more cube drafts we do. But this is yeah, I don't know what to call this. This is just like, this is a draft experience. Like when I was drafting it for the first time, like it really like got to me. Like I really felt like I was having fun, and the memories were like just coming back over and over. Unlike regular cube draft, where I'm kind of just taking the most powerful card in every pack and seeing where my deck goes. You get rewarded for really going into an archetype, and you get rewarded for like staying open and reading what your opponents to your left and right are drafting, and what you should stay out of, what are traps, like depending on all those things matter, and they never did in Yu-Gi-Oh! Draft. And I always felt like Yu-Gi-Oh! Draft was just Yu-Gi-Oh! Limited, for that matter, was always a joke between Battle Pack and between Cube. Like there was never a set format that was really fun, fresh, and new to play. So I wanted to bring you guys something that that was really fun, and I can publish the list on, but it's a lot of cards. Like I'm guessing not a lot of you are gonna have all these cards, especially 3 copies of certain things. But it's a lot of fun, and I'm just really excited to bring content to the channel. We have a few more videos about this cube going up, a few deck profiles. Gonna try and get gameplay. We're still working on some few things for that, but really excited. It's so much fun. The possibilities are endless. So many cards overlap into different archetypes, and so many cards are playable in so many different things. So huge shout out to Tim, everyone who you know, helped me assemble the cards and get this thing off the feet, everyone who supported me through this, because it was a grind. Like I was really focused because I knew this was a great idea, and it turned out how I wanted to. It's so much fun. And another huge shout out to MetaMats. Like those guys are so good to us. I can't say enough about them. Dave is the homie, and their link will be in the description below. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed.